Hi, my name is Anjun, and this video is the first of a few documentation series on our project in data mining course in the fulfillment of Master in Data Science for University of Malaya. So, if you look here, there is already a GitHub website set up. It's set up by my teammate, Jiawei, and our title for our project is Climate, News, and Stock Price Based Predictability on Crude Palm Oil, CPO, Commodity Prices. To give you a bit of the background, is that the top palm oil producing nations are Indonesia followed by Malaysia, and these two countries produce up to 87% of the total palm oil production in the world. So, like any plants, palm oil is also susceptible to climate, extreme weather, excess rainfall, and so on. Our hypothesis is that by looking at Malaysia and Indonesia weather data, we should be able to predict directly on the CPO production yield, as well as indirectly predict the CPO prices. To spice things up, we also investigate the effects of news sentiment analysis for palm oil related news, as well as the top 5 palm oil companies that is trading palm oil or producing palm oil in the world, and see how does the stock price of this company affect CPO prices or vice versa. In our first milestone, we will be talking about the data acquisition and web crawling. We will look at two major tools for web crawling. One is Selenium and the other one is Scrapy. For the four major data sources, we will be looking at the first one, daily trading data on CPO prices, which is on the Bursa Malaysia market. The second one is the weather data on a daily basis from over 80 locations across Malaysia and Indonesia. The third one is monthly Malaysia CPO production from 2014 to 2020. And the last one here, we have news related to palm oil industry on a daily basis from 2009 to 2020. Additional data to explore are stock prices of top 5 major palm oil key companies, and as well as some additional data, weather data from Dark Sky API, and the last one, a land use dataset looking at land use area for palm oil concessions, palm oil mills, RSPO mills, yada from Data Global, forestwatch.org. Okay, without further ado, let me introduce the two mining tools. The first one, Selenium. It is a tool for automating web browser, but a lot of people actually use it for web scraping as well because of the easiness to use it. And on the right hand side, we have Scrapy, which is a much more efficient or productive tool to use if you want to scrap a big project. Okay, so for the first data source on daily CPO prices, we are scraping it from investing.com, and if you look here, basically it has a historical data for palm oil future. However, it's limited to 2020. It's limited to only a month of data unless we interact with the widget. We select earlier beginning dates for the data. So in order to get data from this, the web scraping tool will need to interact with the widget, which traditionally with a request library we cannot do that. Using Selenium, it can interact with the widget. If we look here, the widget that we need to interact with is the widget field date range, and once we click into it, Selenium should interact with start date input as well as end date input to put in the correct date range, and click on apply before scraping the the rest of the table data, which are in HTML format. Allow me to run through the notebook here quickly. So here I have already declared the website, the URL, and once I click this, it's going to start a web driver. And you see here it's running. Once it's open up, you can see that it's going through all the date range, applying it, and you can see that it's already applied it, and you have all the data from 2020 to 2014, which is the earliest it has. In the script, you can see that I have already defined the start date and end date. Here is where it looks into widget field date range widget, clicks it, it puts the start date, and then it puts the end date as well, and then apply the click button on apply. After that, it waits until it's find the table, and this is just a logic to run through the HTML, pass them into a data frame. That's the logic for that. It's going to take some time, and I will not waste your time here, but instead you can see the end result here, where there's a nice price chart plot here done by Panda. Okay, moving on to the second data set for scrapping, we will be looking at n2tinfo.net. Here we can see that there are a lot of countries covered here. We are interested in the countries in Asia, specifically for Malaysia and Indonesia. And here you can see basically it lists out all the cities. You click into it, it gives you the, not this one, this is that. If you look at Banting, not here. Just give me a second here. Okay, so you need to look into climate data where they have the historical data. So if you look at Alostar, list out all the years. And if you click the years, it gives you like the month, and within the month you have all the different days in a nicely table format. But the trick here is that the website, they have put some anti-scrapping technology here. As you can see, these are not selectable, whereas yeah, basically they are all not selectable, but these ones are actually numbers. However, here is actually a pseudo element which you can't really scrap unless you know the dictionary. So I will go through how we handle that. As you can see, the number 2 here is actually span class and TTU. In the other case where there is actually actual numbers, and when it goes down here it does not have actual numbers, so it makes it very hard for people to scrape. So here you can see I have actually accumulated 4 sets of patterns for the span class. You can see that in the climate here, NTAS refers to 8, and I have already calculated for that in my data, which is NTAS as 8 in this dictionary. So I have gone through the trouble to match them so that I will be able to scrape their data without any problem. Same thing as how we scrape for investing.com. We are basically specifying the URL, the domain, and then before I even start scraping the data, I go into the country website, basically scrape for all the different locations. I get the station IDs because if you have noticed, this part is actually the station ID. And all I need to know is the station ID, and then I need to know what are the dates available, and I can change that in the URL and do that in a loop to get all the data for all these weather stations. So yes, just let me run this for you to see it in action. So now it's getting the weather data, the stations data from these two countries, Malaysia and Indonesia. And you can see that it has already scraped the dictionary. So we specify a directory for storing the data, and here is where we start scraping the data. You can see it's going directly to the month of the year of the weather station, and after like 20 seconds you can see it's going through February of that year of that station. So this will do it in an iterative process until it scrapes all of the year and all of the months of this station. So the data that is stored is in the CSV format, and it basically has all the components of the table we just saw just now. Which are the columns which are standing for the different temperatures, atmospheric pressure, wind speed, and so on. Okay, that's all for Selenium. I will pass to my teammate to talk about Scrappy.
Alright, so my teammate Engjun has already introduced the datasets of our project. The two of the datasets, which is the main data source in here, the daily trading day CPO prices, and the monthly weather data that have collected from the web. So now I'm going to talk about the monthly Malaysia CPO production from year 2014 to 2020, and also the palm oil related news which I crawl from the website using Scrappy. So looking at the website that I used to crawl the news is actually the age markets. So I just key in the palm oil keywords in here using the search button, and I choose the year between 2010 to 2020, and as you can see it comes out with all the news with keywords that has palm oil, so you can see all these things. And then later I crawl using the Scrappy. So before I actually crawling the Scrappy, I have to determine the structure of the to the HTML first. So I use the inspect button in here and to see which class or HTML tags that they use. So in here you can actually see that it's in a div class of view contents, and every one of them has a same class of view rows. So later I will use Scrappy to scrap all these informations according to the text. So in here, this is one of the Scrappy codes in here. Scrappy is actually a library of Python that you can use, and it actually pull out a lot of associate codes that they need to use. But for this project, I only use this news py, the code in here, and also there's another item in here, the item.py. This is actually just how you write the output. For example, here you can see there's a remove text. So when we scrap from the website, and they sometimes they output together with the HTML text. So we have to remove the text. So HTML text is like H1s, the div, and some image text. So we don't want all those HTML text. We only want text words. So we use this to remove. And then text first is a function that it takes only the first output that it scrap out. So so in the code here, I actually use import scrapy, and then I use from demo news.item. Demo news is a folder name that I use, and then the dot item is actually the item.py. Just now we see it. And then from scrapy loader we import item loader. So this is the URL that I use to crawl the news related to palm oil, which is the H in here. And using these functions, so using a for loop, and I take a response from the div class view rows. So in here you can actually find the XML path. For example, div. So as you can see, this is all, they have 21 items in this page. So 21 news related to palm oil. So for news in all these 21 items, then we load them into respective fields. So for example, we crawl the news title. So news title is actually the first one in here. So this is the news title. Okay, and so for the news title, is actually in this XML path. It's just inside this div row, and then for this particular class, there's a ID. Sorry, not ID. It's a class called view field title, and then this one we strap out using the anchor tag A, HTML anchor tag A. So it's this one. So it will come out with this text: collapse of Singapore Community Firm. And then followed by the news date. So we have a class called will feel nothings in here, and it's actually inside this one. Oh, sorry. So inside this one. So it's inside div class will feel nothing, and then we extract in the span text the text content of it. So it's this date, and then followed by news content. So for the news content we extract is actually not the full news that if you click in, then you can see there's a long of paragraph and then a lot of sentence, but we only extract some keywords and their related words, and also the sentence. They might form in pieces of sentence, but I think it's okay for us to analyze it later. So this is the scrapy function. Sorry, the scrapy codes that I use to crawl from the news. Then next one, I'm going to talk about the CPO production monthly data using Scrapy as well, and it's crawled in this website. It's a monthly palm oil trade statistic website. So from the year 2014 to 2020, we crawl. And as you can see, it uses similar things. Oh, before I forget, when we crawl the news, because there's a lot of pages, right? So we actually use another function to further crawl into the pages of all the content. So for example, the page that we see just now is actually just 21 items, but we want to crawl much more than that. So you can see there's a lot of pages in here until the last item. So what I do in here is actually using a looping as well to continue extract the next page. So there's a class called the next page, and then we have a XML path of the next class button, which is this button. And if you examine this button, okay, so you can actually see, oops, so you can see the next page button is actually anchor tag because it will take you to another page. So we extract the href, and then using the loopings that we continue to crawl into the next page until the end. But for this monthly CPO palm oil trade, we don't have pages to crawl. We only have like per page. So 2014 they have one page only, and then 15 by 15 we have one page only. So we don't have the we don't need to crawl into pages by pages. So okay, so this is where we continue to crawl the monthly palm oil trade statistic 2014. This is the URL, and then for CPO in these all the tables in here, you can see this is a table, and if I inspect, so you can actually see there's a table in here, but here we got a lot of table, right? So I choose only the third table in this web page, so I crawl the third pages of it, and then for each of the inside this table you have all the rows and the column, but I only choose column 214 because I only want to crawl for 2014, and then later I'll follow by 2015, 2016, and so on. And then what we do is we just need to change this to 2015 later on. Okay, so from 2015. Yeah, so you have 2015, and the HTML architecture is actually the same, so you can use the same code to crawl. So this is 2014, and for each of the row we have months and the production volumes in here, and then so in here we add a month, and then production and the year. So what it will look like in here after crawl out. So this will be the JSON file. There's some empty rows or empty values in here, but later we will remove them. So this is a year, this is a month, so we have a January, and then we have a production. So we have a month in here, then we have production in here, then we have year. So this is only all the XML path inside this one to crawl out the value. And let me show you the example of the news JSON data after being crawled out. So this is the JSON file being crawled out. We can't open in GitHub because it's too big, so GitHub bring us to this HTML. So we can able to see all these. So we have news title in here, we have news date, so we have news content, so which is the same as how we crawl it. So news titles, news dates, news content, and then all the values is inside all these columns. Sorry, all these brackets. So as you can see, there's a lot of data in here because we crawl all the way from 2010 to 2020 February. So this is it, how we crawl using Scrapy and Selenium to get the data from the web page. So thank you.